When you write something, the person reading should be impressed by what you have written, how you are communicating to the reader. Not only descriptive, when you write about something, you express your thoughts, so actually you are reflecting on some incidents. When something happens, you go back, you think about it, and you find what made the situation happen and how is it going to result in future. Hello students, I am Anil, Assistant Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. Today let us discuss about the writing skills prescribed for the students of 3rd semester BCom. Writing is a complex cognitive activity. It can be viewed somehow narrowly as a particular kind of verbal production skill where text is manufactured to meet a discourse demand, or more broadly as a complex integrated performance that cannot be understood apart from the social and cognitive purpose it serves. Thus, writing is integrated into various aspects of our everyday lives. Learning to write properly is also crucial for students who plan to pursue communication degrees and similar programs. So here, when you are undergoing training as undergraduate students, you should develop this habit of using whatever you have learned and produce it in a good written communication. So writing is a skill where you express your ideas even when you are not there to explain what it is. Then people will read and understand what you have written. Therefore, writing is a skill. So expert writers often develop elaborate goals. So they will have a number of things to express, number of things to narrate to the readers, particularly content and rhetorical goals which require sophisticated problem solving. In contrast, novice writers, that is, the beginners, typically take a simpler, natural approach to composing and adopting a knowledge-telling approach in which content is generated through association with one idea promoting the next. However, regardless of whether a writer is an expert or a novice, the ability to write well itself is more likely a sign of clear thinking, better communication skills, understanding others' situation, and more. So when you start thinking of writing something, you have to bring all the experiences that you had from day one of your learning. When you started to write something, then you should gather all those information and then start writing. If you are a beginner, that is what we started doing in schools. We started with words, then we framed sentences, then we understood how to rearrange it in order to express what we intended to tell. So these kinds of thoughts should be assimilated, clearly thought, put it into sentence, then express our ideas. Impressive writing skill is also a great tool to have in a career. So impressive writing is very important. When you write something, the person reading should be impressed by what you have written, how you are communicating to the reader. Even if the position being considered is not exactly for a technical or creative writing job, 80% of employees still want candidates with good written communication skills. This is because a lot of work involves using the skills such as answering an email, communicating with clients, and interacting with team members. Writing is today's currency for good idea. So writing is very essential. Even when you take up a job, people like to find out that if you have this skill of writing a very good letter or use of these words to convince the clients. So this is where this skill of writing comes into play. So in writing, based on the goals of what we write, there are different types. So first one is the descriptive writing. It is prescribed for you by the University of Mysore. So reading the title itself, descriptive writing, we can understand what is the aim of this kind of writing. It is defining, explaining, telling everything to the reader. Descriptive writing is a style or technique of writing used by the writer to help the reader vividly visualize the story or situation using words, metaphors, adjectives, and other literary techniques. So you will make the reader to think and imagine what you are trying to convey. Therefore, description, writing in detail, is what is important for the writer. Descriptive writing is about using the power of words to arouse the imagination, capture the attention, and create a lasting impact in the mind of the reader. So when somebody reads what you have written, It should stay in the mind of the reader. So this is how you create an impression in the reader and use your writing skills. This style of writing is useful when you want the reader to imagine or picture the story or situation you are writing about. So therefore, this kind of writing is very simple to understand, but it takes great effort to produce a piece of writing having this quality, descriptive quality. So the idea is to provide the reader with rich details for them to picture in their minds the characters, settings, objects, emotions, and places, or even events taking place in real time. So here we can understand, for example, take novels. When you read novels, the author or the writer gives you a detailed a detailed picture of the settings. While you read, your brain thinks, you try to understand what is there inside it. So therefore, that is how he gives each detail. Let us take these two things. They mean the same. I felt tired at work today, isn't it? When you go back home after college, when people come back home after their work, they simply put it in simpler words. I felt tired at work today. I felt tired at college today. So this is the simpler way of telling what you wanted to convey them. Now, the same thing can be conveyed in more vivid manner. When somebody listens to your words, they will have to imagine many number of things. So let us see. As the day wore on at work, I felt a cramp beginning to form at the nape of my leg. My eyes began to feel droopy, and the computer screen in front of me began blurring. So when you read this, you start to imagine things, don't you? But here, in this sentence, it is very simpler, but here it is a detailed one. So that is what makes this sentence very descriptive. So among those two, which one of the two do you find more interesting to read? Obviously, the second one is more interesting. This is because while the first sentence merely tells you directly what you felt tired at work today, the second one explains the same experience in a much more vivid and relatable manner. From this, you can see that even something as simple as the above sentence can be transformed using literary devices that aid visualization. So that makes you imagine things. Then the second one is, this is the second one, narrative. Descriptive is that where you describe things, but narrative comes like telling a story. Narration. Narrative writing is basically storytelling in writing form with the intent of motivating, educating, or simply entertaining the audience. Regardless of whether the story being told is real or fictional, narrative writing can be one of the easiest for the reader and the most difficult for the writers. So narrative, creating a story is a bit difficult when compared to the listeners or readers. So when you tell somebody a story, you should make it very interesting. Then only the reader gets connected with your story. So this is such story. All novels again comes under narrative, where a story is being told, your imagination are captured. You go on with the flow of the story. That is because readers will be prodded by their imagination and understanding in order to get the narrative. Writers, on the other hand, will have to pen it in a way that will bring readers to the world in their story while keeping them engaged and captivated. So that is the intention of narrative writing. When you are writing a piece of narration, or when you are writing in this format, narrative format, you have to think more. You have to think from the point of readers. What makes a reader getting caught in the book? So another important element of narrative writing is the point of view of the person telling the story. So one is the viewpoint of the reader, what makes them feel interested in your piece of writing. Then the second one is your point of view, the storyteller. This could be a character in the story whose knowledge of the plot is limited to his or her part in the story. Authors can also use the perspective of a narrator who carries the story through all seeing eye that knows the motives, thoughts, and reactions of characters. So narrative writing is a highly diverse genre that includes adventure, fantasy, mystery, tragedy, comedy, fairy tale, myth, drama. Everything comes under narrative type of writing. Even when you write a descriptive piece of writing, it may be brought under narrative type of writing as well. But you have to understand what you are doing when you are writing something. Third one is reflective writing. The word itself means something. Reflecting means imagining something or recalling something which has already happened or expressing one's opinion on something. Reflections. So here, reflective writing is an analytical practice in which the writer describes a real or imaginary scene. It may be real or it may be imaginary. Imaginary interaction, passing thought or memory, and adds a personal reflection on its meaning. Many reflective writers keep in mind questions such as, what did I notice? How has this changed me? What might I have done differently when reflecting? So, this is like this. Something happens, then you start thinking on it. So, if you put it on a paper, all these thoughts in terms of words and sentences, then it becomes a reflective piece of writing. Thus, in reflective writing, the focus is on writing that is not merely descriptive. Not only descriptive, when you write about something, you express your thoughts, so actually you are reflecting on some incidents. It becomes like descriptive writing as well. The writer revisits the scene to note details and emotions, reflect on meaning, examine what went well or revealed a need for additional learning, and relate what transpired to the rest of life. So this is that kind of writing where you will reflect on something. As a writer, you will reflect on something. The main characteristics of reflective writings include reflection, that is thought process. The writer reflects on the issue and considers how their own experience and point of view might influence their response. This helps the writer learn about themselves as well as contribute to a better final product that considers biases. Then evidence. The writer considers and cites different perspective and evidence to provide a truly comprehensive reflection. So sometimes authors want to prove their point. In order to do this, they will bring evidences. When they write reflective writing, they take an issue, they start writing on it, and they bring evidences. For example, survey, effect of pandemic on laborers or unorganized sector. If you consider these points, the author may express his own point of view, and then in order to support his points, he may bring the evidences from survey. What all happened, what is happening right now, what went right, what went wrong. So this is called reflective piece of writing. Third one is the clarity. The writer must be clear and cohesive. When you write a reflective piece of writing, you should stick to your thoughts. You should not go off the road. So, as reflective writing takes the reader through both the writer's own thoughts and sometimes others' outside perspectives, unity and readability are crucial to ensure the reader does not get lost between points of view. So, that is very important when you are writing a reflective piece of art. If the reflection is written for academia, for example, academic purposes, you wanted to write a reflective paper. Additional features include theory. You have to state a theory first, then you start going explaining it. An academic reflection will integrate theories and other academic works to explain the reflection. Second one is the learning outcomes. An academic reflection will include commentary on how the writer learned from the experience, what they would have done differently, or how their perspectives or opinions have changed as a result of the experience. These are all the points very important when you write this kind of writing, reflective writing. Then the fourth one, persuasive or argumentative. So what do you understand by the word persuasion? Persuasion means you are trying to convince somebody and want them to act according to your thoughts. You want to persuade somebody. You want to make people listen to you. Therefore you do argument, isn't it? When you don't agree with something, we tend to argue, isn't it? So this piece of writing is called persuasive or argumentative. Persuasive writing, as the term suggests, it is a type of literature whose objective is to persuade the audience in aligning their thoughts and actions with the author's own goals. So when you are writing something, you want people to accept your thoughts, therefore you write something. So such paper becomes persuasive, where you want to move a crowd with respect to your thoughts. The writer takes a definitive stance about something, be it pro or against, and asks his or her audience to do the same. It is basically influencing someone to take the author's side in order to have the audience believe or do something. So this is the goal of persuasive writing or argumentative writing. Since the goal is to convince someone of something, the writing is typically backed by research, analysis, logical references, and studies. This means that even though the piece heavily contains the author's biases and personal opinions, it still includes reasons, justifications, and arguments to exude an objective tone. Actually, the author is trying to express his point of view, but he takes the support of all these techniques. And finally, there is this paper. So where do you find this? You may find this in editorials where great writers express their views on current issues. Therefore, this is a very important type in writing. With that said, however, it is equally important to appeal to the reader's emotions just as much. That is because a strong connection is not just formed through facts and figures alone, but through the reader's sympathy as well. So when you write an argumentative or persuasive writing, you have to bring in emotions, where people are moved by the emotions. The most common example of persuasive writing is the editorial section of the newspaper. As I said, you will find this in editorial sections of newspapers. Others include reviews of books, places, products, movies, music, etc. So when you go watch a movie, you tend to have an opinion on it and you want to convince the same to your friends and family. So there you can apply this technique. Cover letters, argumentative essays, letters of complaint, letters of recommendation, and advertisements are also part of this genre. Now comes comparative writing. What is comparative writing? The word itself suggests that it is comparing two things, or it is comparing the similar qualities or dissimilar qualities. Comparing whatever you write, comparing two different things. For example, pros and cons of anything. So things like that, when you start comparing in recent days, you come across different types of cell phones, cars, bikes which you have a taste in it and which you like, food example. Writing a comparison usually requires that you assess the similarities and differences between two or more theories, procedures, or processes. You explain to your reader what insights can be gained from the comparison or judge whether one thing is better than the other according to established criteria. This is what you do when you compare two things. A comparative essay is a type of essay in which an essay writer compares at least two or more items. The author compares two subjects with the same relation in terms of similarities and differences, depending on the assignment. The main purpose of the comparative essay is to highlight the similarities or differences in a systematic manner. When you do it, it should be very logical, systematic, and when people read what you have written, they should understand that you are correct. It provides a great clarity of the subject to the readers. Analyze two things and describe their advantages and drawbacks. Take for example, cell phones. If you go to YouTube, you open the page and there is this person who lists all the similar qualities of a phone and dissimilar qualities of two different phones of the same price. So this is how you choose a topic, and when you put it into paper, when you start writing this, it becomes a comparative writing. So comparative essay is also known as compare and contrast essay or a comparison essay. It analyzes two subjects by either comparing them or contrasting them or both. The Venn diagram is the best tool for writing a paper about the comparison between two subjects. Venn diagram, you may know this. These are the similar qualities and these are dissimilar qualities. So this is how you start writing a paper. Moreover, a comparative analysis essay discusses the similarities and differences of ideas, items, events, views, places, concepts. For example, you can compare two different novels. You can compare two different novels, two different poems, two types of writings, or two different group of people, or diversity in India. You can write n number of articles with this type of writing, comparison and contrasting. Now, the last one is cause and effect writing. That itself means something has caused something and what is its effect. For example, that we are familiar with pandemic. What caused COVID-19 and what are its effects now? how was life before COVID and how is life after COVID. So you are writing which caused something and its effects. Cause and effect paper uses analysis to examine the reasons and the outcomes of situations. They are an attempt to discover either the origins of something, such as an event or a decision, the effects of results that can be properly attributed to it, or both. A cause and effect relies heavily on your analysis of the situation. So, when something happens, you go back, you think about it, and you find what made this situation happen and how is it going to result in future. So that is how you write a cause and effect paper. Although there are many ways to interpret any situation and the effects that it has produced, in the end, the convincing power of your paper depends on the specific evidence, clear and convincing language, and logical development. So when you write, you should keep these points in mind. Specific evidence, clear and convincing language, and logical development of your narration. So after watching this video, you will understand how to identify what kind of writing that you are reading, or how to write a proper writing, how to write a proper piece of article, and what is your thoughts. When you start writing something, you have to fix your goal. Why are you writing that piece of work? What is your intention? Are you going to tell a story? Are you going to create a debate? Are you going to compare and contrast something? Or are you trying to convince somebody of your views? So, taking this into consideration, you start writing the things. Use correct language, logical development of your argument, or logical growth of your story. So, use all these characters in a systematic way and you can easily write a beautiful article. So, we shall meet in the next class. Thank you.